Next up on Ask the Minister, this question: how do I stop feeling like as I get older, everything gets heavier? They say life becomes clearer in your old age, but I think that is horseshit that people with kids and spouses make up so they don't go crazy and start playing pickleball or some shit. I haven't felt comfortable in, well, ever. Neurodiversity isn't helping either. First of all, lots of shade being thrown at pickleball, which I'm not mad at. I'm not a fan either. However, let's talk about what you mean by heavier. And by heavier, I'm assuming that you mean more despair or it takes longer to get over some things. Again, that's an assumption on my part. So if that's not what you mean, please let me know. But when we talk about finding ourselves in a place of despair, a couple of things we have to ask ourselves. Is this around personal life satisfaction or dissatisfaction, rather? Is life not turning out how you expected? Do you have an ongoing list of unmet needs and desires? Is it a constant struggle and grind just to make it from day to day? What are the conditions that you are in that make you feel like life is not going great? And some of these include external things like the state of the world, right? Every day we wake up, there's more war, there's more inequity. It feels like climate change is not helping either. So it's understandable that you feel a sense of despair. Also, you mentioned neurodivergence, and unfortunately, we live in a world that is not conditioned to readily accept people who aren't normal. And normal means those at the top of a hierarchical construct have defined it, and it really is an illusion. If you go back to my Ask the Minister video about ableism, I raised the question of, is disability a real thing, or is it just the varieties of life conditions that we have ranked and created hierarchies around, and those who are not at the top of the hierarchy, something's wrong with them? And this isn't to take away from any legitimate conditions that you might be experiencing. But that notwithstanding, let's address a few things. I don't know if you've ever heard of the happiness curve, but the happiness curve is this theory that as we get older, our state of happiness decreases from our teens and 20s, and it constantly goes down until middle age, mid 40s, 50s, and then it starts to go back up. We start off happy in life, we get decreasingly sadder, more despair, depressed, and then things curve upwards again. And the theory behind this is that as we're younger, we're full of optimism and engaged in life. And then as we approach middle age, the realities of what it means to be a human being in this world set in. And we have to kind of like come to terms with the fact that, all the dreams we had for ourselves won't be met, that for some of us, life is really hard and things are feeling less happy. But then we kind of get on the other side of that. We begin to know ourselves more, make more peace with who we are, and reconcile that our dreams may not be met. And we begin to adjust our expectations around life, and things start to feel better. Happiness curve, I have to point out, does not account for things like certain unexpected life conditions like bereavement or chronic illnesses or displacement. And the happiness curve seems to apply more for people who live in countries with a better safety social net. So as they get older, in their 60s and 70s, there's less to worry about in terms of life conditions. I happen to know who sent this question in, and they're a couple of years younger than I am, so mid to late 40s. So this is peak unhappiness in the general happiness curve theory. The other thing that we also have to realize is that when we look at the state of the world right now, yes, it's a cause for despair. However, we got to kind of take a macro view of how humanity has evolved, and we are getting better as a species. When you look at how humans existed and treated each other decades ago, centuries ago, millennia ago, we're doing better in terms of equity, in terms of life longevity and health, in the state of humanistic approach to things. We're doing better, but we're humans. We evolve in fits and starts, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. And sometimes every generation feels, or there are things that occur in every generation that feel like 2 steps back, but there's also things that are 2 steps forward. So sometimes if we get too caught up in the micro view of things, and it's not that we shouldn't, or that we shouldn't address issues that need to be addressed in the micro, but sometimes we also got to take that macro view and that step back and realize, oh, over time we are getting better, and hopefully get some hope from that. The question asks, how do you stop feeling like that? Here's my response to that. We got to take both a macro and a micro approach. In this present moment, what is it that makes you feel most alive, that brings you joy? Do you know these things? Can you discover and practice them? And perhaps sometimes that means less is more. Do less, but focus more on the things that make you feel alive. Invest in meaningful relationships with others, and relationships of all kinds, if you can. Friendships, romantic, sexual. Engage in relationships that, again, make you feel alive. Because when we feel alive, we kind of view the world differently. And again, if that means less people in your life, but more purposeful, meaningful relationships, so be it. What else are we doing to support our mind, body, spirit? Therapy. Do we need medication? How are we regulating our nervous system? Are there spiritual practices that help us feel more at peace with ourselves and the state of the world? Not bypassing the things that are not going well, but simply putting them in a context that allow us to be more accepting and embracing. And finally, I would say, can we trust that any individual and collective action we take towards a better future for our planet and our world is making a difference? We're choosing to recycle, or I chose to buy an electric car, and it doesn't seem to be making a difference. But there's this Greek proverb that says, a society grows great when elders plant trees in whose shade they will never sit. And I trust that whatever I am planting in terms of environmental care, social justice, can I trust that those things will make a difference in the future? And you might say, no, I can't trust that, but I'm going to invite you to trust that. There are people, for example, who made many sacrifices and investments towards equity and equality decades and decades ago, when they weren't experiencing them and didn't experience them in their lifetime. But here we are in a world that is a little more just than it was, for some of us at least, decades ago or centuries ago. Trust. Look at the history. Look at the long view. I hope this response was helpful. If you'd like to talk more, please DM me, reach out, visit revogan.net. You'll find ways you can communicate with me, and if you feel moved to leave a donation.